I'm Stephen Wynn. I'm here today to talk to the four leading candidates for mayor in San Francisco about their personal experience of the arts, the things that have inspired and moved them.
Well, first of all, Steve, I am an art history fanatic. I'm an art history student. My major in college was art history and Dante, Italian literature. I live in Italy during the summers. I'm a fanatic about from Cimabue to Caravaggio, which would be the 1300s to 1610. I just built the little chapel in the heart of North Beach that's got Perugino's and Ilario di Viterbo. So, and this is Renaissance art that you can see from the street. So I surround myself with my passion for art whenever I'm not doing law, politics, family. It's literally an outlet for me. So I think I've come to the right place. I love the arts.
It's great to hear a mayoral candidate talk about Cimabue already. It's terrific.
Right.
Let me ask you how your love of these things sort of informs your identity as a politician and someone who's working on public issues. How do those things, what's the connective tissue there for you?
Well, I think the connective tissue is that I can't imagine a world without art. I just can't imagine a world without art. So anything I do has got art involved in it, whether it's opera, ballet, or you know, our museums, our fine art museums. And I have always been involved in the arts in San Francisco, and it's probably because I went to school in Florence for so long.
Well, I actually saw the play Hamilton here in San Francisco. Oh my goodness, one of the most amazing performances I've seen in so long. I come from the arts community. I ran an arts organization,
I know that. Yes,
the African American Art and Culture Complex for 10 years. The arts just really fascinate me. It comes alive in the people who perform, who produce, who make San Francisco, I believe, one of the most incredible places here. So I just, everything about the arts, whether it's literature, whether it's performing arts, whether it's music, what have you, it's something that's really near and dear to my heart.
What was it about Hamilton specifically that really kind of got to you and that proved moving and motivating and inspiring to you?
I think it told an amazing story, and also it included politics. It included intrigue, the dancing, the singing, how it came together, the movement, the structure, the scene that rewind a scene. I mean, just how it was put together. It was so fascinating to watch. You couldn't turn your head for a moment. You wanted to see every single thing that happened in the process. And so I think all of it combined made for an incredible performance.
Let's touch on your own experience as an arts administrator for a decade, as you said. How does that play into your, into your candidacy and the way that you think about the arts specifically?
Well, I basically ran for supervisor during the time that I served as the executive director of the African American Art and Culture Complex. And the reason why I ran is because I wanted to make sure that the funding and the policies and how we make decisions in San Francisco actually impacts the community better, specifically with the arts and what we were doing to use the arts to transform lives in the community, in the Western Addition community. And so part of what I did when I first became a member was make sure that we protected the arts when we had some challenges with our hotel tax legislation where funding was looking to be cut. And I made sure that we not only didn't cut the funding, but we increased it. And we started thinking about community arts organizations differently and how we play a role in providing them support. In fact, I helped to fund a grant writer for my arts organizations. Not only do they help to write these grants for obtaining financial support for small institutions with the city, but they also administer the grants. I did this at the African American Art and Culture Complex, especially because we had the most talented people who basically didn't have time for paperwork, didn't have time to basically administer a grant, and sometimes would forget deadlines and lose funding as a result of that. So as mayor, I want to make sure that we're doing a better job to provide the resources, to make sure the arts are protected, and to make sure we're providing the infrastructure necessary to support the arts long-term, whether it's a small or large institution.
When I first moved to San Francisco, I spent 6 years as an organizer for an all-volunteer performance arts venue in San Francisco, and we called it Locust Arts. It was a venue space dedicated to supporting emerging Asian Pacific American artists and connecting them to audiences and building community through the arts. So we used to organize 3 to 4 arts shows a month, a range of open mics, to band nights, poetry slams, theater readings, open night for comedy. And so I really got immersed into the local art scene here in San Francisco, and that's how I got to interface with Intersection for the Arts,
Where
and
was the
Cool
venue?
Arts, and Bindlestiff. We started out in Japantown
Uh-huh.
at 1640 Post,
Oh.
and then we were at Galleria del Raza for a year, and then we moved to 180 Cap, where Secret Alley is today. And during that time, I was also part of an all-women's band called Strangely, and we performed at Pinoy's Pop, at Bindlestiff, at Aperture, at Somarts, at Brainwash, actually, down the street from where I live today. And so the arts community has always been deeply embedded in my life. And
You play the bass guitar, is that right?
that's a strong word to say play, but yes, I have played a bass guitar, and it was a ton of fun because I was used to curating events and organizing events, and it's very different to be on stage and to perform, and it's its own experience.
Other side of the footlights.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I continue to love the arts. Live music shows are one of the favorite things that I get to do. Recently, I saw the Bad Plus perform, actually their last year together at both SF Jazz and at the Village Vanguard in New York City. They did a week run on New Year's.
You're a fan, you were following them around.
I was just very fortunate to be in both cities in their final year of playing together. I finally got to see Lang Lang at the Symphony this year. I got to see Stevie Wonder in New Orleans, which is always a treat. He's one of my favorite artists of all times. I have a membership at SF MoMA. It's 2 blocks from my house, so I regularly see exhibits there. So I just saw the Bobby Kennedy photo exhibit. I got to see Solange Knowles play there for one of their Arts Bash. I have been to the DeYoung. It's a little farther for me, but I got to see their exhibit on African Americans from the South, which I thought was incredibly interesting. I also saw the African American migration exhibit at the Whitney, the new Whitney in New York last year, which was funded by the Ford Foundation. That was extraordinary as well.
What of these, if maybe pick out one or two of those things, what about those things have like motivated or moved you or inspired you in a particular way? Is there?
Yeah, people always ask me for my role models in politics, but actually many of my role models are artists. I love musicians, and I learned so much from them. And Ahmad Jamal, who's actually playing at the Symphony the day after Election Day on June 6th, I already have my tickets, did a great interview with a friend of mine talking about what it means to play together and how it's important for the band to know each other well and to be intimate and to love one another, and what it means to have, a rhythm. And that in many ways has been foundational in terms of how I manage the teams that I'm a part of as well. There is a level of intimacy and love that's involved in the work, both for the work but also with each other, that allows us, I think, to work so well together. I'm really lucky. On my legislative team, which is an all-female team, I've known most of my legislative team for 17 years. We all started out as organizers in the Tenderloin and the Mission. I was in Chinatown. And they've been with me long before I got into office, and we just know each other so well, and it helps us work together. And I think, I've been one of the most prolific legislators on the Board of Supervisors over my 8 years, and I think in large part it's due to the team that I have and how we click together.
Is it a bit like playing in a band, that kind of
It
improvisatory
is.
quality
Yeah,
where you hear
it's-
each other? And
It's a combination, right? Some of it is just rehearsing. Some of it is spending the time together and practice and routine, and then some of it comes from our ability to improvise. But I think that you can improvise well together when you've rehearsed and practiced a lot together.
And sometimes in performance things happen unexpectedly, and presumably you can draw on that.
All the time, every time. In fact, I'm always astonished at how much always takes us by surprise. In fact, the one thing I always expect now on anything that I work on is to be surprised.
So let me just preface my response to say that for some unknown reason, I have been blessed with musical and artistic people in my life. I don't know why I'm so lucky. I am a musical fan. I've got no talents myself, but I've been drawn to it from a very early age. And so the specific answer to your question, I have to forewarn you, I hate superlative questions. So I don't like the most this, but I'll tell you my favorite.
I got you. And anything that's,
but
significant.
my favorite color is blue.
Okay, we got that. We've covered the superlative.
But I would have to say, of all the myriad of possible answers to the question, would be the San Francisco Symphony's Pride concert a year ago last April. And first time ever. And it came from an interesting place in that the symphony had planned to do some concerts on an East Coast tour that was taking them to Carnegie Hall, a couple of concerts at Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
I remember all this, of course.
And
yes.
then North Carolina and its legislature
Right.
went down this very unfortunate path. And subsequently, the city of San Francisco, the state of California, banned any public travel to North Carolina as a protest. And Mark Benioff led a corporate exodus to North Carolina, and all of it around LGBT civil rights
Right.
and this ridiculous non-issue of bathrooms. And so a lifelong friend of mine, Michael Thomas, and the folks at the Symphony asked for my counsel as to whether they should go or not. And Michael, being creative always, thought maybe they should go and make a deal out of it and do a special concert there and shine a light on the LGBT community's historical value and contributions to classical music. And I had to tell Michael and the Symphony, no, you can't go. It's just not going to work. They lost.
Interesting discussion, though, isn't it?
Yes, and
Yeah.
they lost some millions of dollars because
Right.
they had to put down some down payments.
Right.
And there was the symphony canceling a performance, so that's not good for the brand. But again, in his creativity, Michael thought, okay, well, how can we make some lemonade out of these lemons? And decided to do a special concert in San Francisco to do the very same thing he was thinking of doing in North Carolina. And so it became San Francisco Symphony's first Pride concert. And so I got involved. We had to raise a couple $100,000, I think maybe around $300,000, in just about a month or two's time, to show the symphony that we could underwrite the whole thing. The concert was in April, so we had a due date early February. And we did that. The response was terrific. We had some new donors to the symphony, which is good for the organization. And I tapped some friends, and Joshua Robeson kicked in some effort, and so we did that. And then the concert itself was just extraordinary. Music almost exclusively chosen from known gay composers, from Meredith Monk to Stephen Sondheim to Leonard Bernstein, and everyone in between. Laura Nyro. They did Save the Country. I don't know if you know that
I do
song,
know
but
that
it's
song,
just
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
Audra McDonald sang it for the first time.
Yes.
Michael told her, you should make this your anthem, because, and this was April 17, so not long after November 16. And there's a lyric from Save the Country, if I can pull it up right now, but save the country, save the country, save the country now. Yeah.
Well, you've really hit on the nexus of art and politics. You went
Yeah.
right to it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you to sort of talk about how some of the values of music, which you've focused on, might inform your values as a mayor. What kinds of things is music inspiring or moving or instructive to you about how one does the public work of governing?
So I'm not expert in left and right sides of brains,
Gotcha.
but so much of public policy is in a sense buttoned down and has to be presented in a certain way publicly. It has to have an authority about it and a substantiality about it. And then, of course, there's this whole other aspect, which I would put the arts and creativity, and not that there isn't creativity in legislating and public policy, there definitely is, but just free form and expression and allowing every possibility to infuse. And so there are similarities, as I'm talking about. There are clearly similarities, but there are also some stark differences. And so, yes, the arts allows us to imagine other worlds and to enter into those other worlds of creativity and imagination. And somehow that gets infused with inner parts of us that are at times closed off because of that public presentation and the formality of so much public life. So for me, it's that other side of myself, other side of all of us, that we are better off when we allow it to infuse and when we allow each of those worlds to infuse the other. So the creative world can enhance the creativity of the button-down world, and the authority of of the one can also enhance
Inform the other, yeah.
So
I'm thinking of that lyric, the line that is cited in Evita, that politics is the art of the possible. Of course,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's kind of what you're talking about in some ways, yeah.